Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, I've been filming a lot of the quick studies. Quick studies are things that I do towards the end of the day, and I usually alternate. So if I've been painting a lot of flowers or something, I'll go over and paint some landscapes. So each day I try to practice a little bit. So if I'm putting in a lot of work on flowers like I was doing this morning on a larger painting, in the afternoon before I close up and stuff, I usually take over my leftover paint and paint a little quick landscape, something that's in a different genre to always keep my skills going. I'm always practicing. It's one of the things, always practicing. Well, I used up most of my paint, so I just squirted out a little bit of my favorite palette. That's right here. These are the listing of all the palettes and all the colors and everything are in the video description down below, okay? But it's my normal palette, and I've added some medium white here. I've also added out just a little bit of the open medium in case I like to do that. This is a landscape. It has some clouds. It has a few other things, and I do like to use that open medium on clouds. And then I have a little cap of the extender medium out here, which is the extender that we make for it, and this will keep the colors wet, but it also thins them slightly, which is what I use at the beginning of the painting. So what I have here is, this is a regular board. It is 14 inches this way. Normally I do a 14 by 11, but I wanted this just a little bit wider, so I had a piece that was 14 by 12. But you can easily cut off a ½ inch on each side and make it a 14 by 11. This is a photo that I really fell in love with. This is up in Montana, and this is the Absaroka range of mountains, which is a sub-range of the Rockies, and it runs between Wyoming and Montana. It's a beautiful range, and I just found this picture out there. I'm going to use it for some inspiration. I love this this pine here. I believe it looks like a ponderosa pine sitting right out here like this, and these other pines and some fields and stuff, and it's going to be smaller. So it's going to be a little bit challenging for us to figure out how to get some of these areas in and get some of the interest in. It's good practice, right? All right. So what I have is it's base coated with a light coat of the canvas prep medium, sanded with the 180 grit sandpaper, and then I sketched on what it is I'm going to paint. So let's get at it. First thing I want to do is I kind of find that sky, and up there at the top it's like a 7. And down at the very bottom is almost to a 10. It's right between a 9 and a 10 up there. So we want to get that, we want to start out with that sky. And it's a blue violet, just a little bit, not quite as a violet, but we'll take some of this. And this is probably going to be too dark. It always is. I always, I've been painting with Phthalo Blue for 40 years, and I still misjudge just how powerful this color is. Let's just add some more white. We're going to use this. I think I'm going to use this anyway in the atmospheric of the Absaroka range of mountains. So if I make this like a 8, it'll dry down to a 7 really easy. So that is right about an 8. So got a little glare there. So it's a little lighter than that 7, but it's right about an 8. Let's add just a touch here, and just right in here. Let's just take it down just a bit. Wouldn't hurt it to be the sky to be a little deeper at the top anyway. But I thought, this would be a fun one to kind of finish off the day, to film it for you guys, and we'll have a little bit of fun. Okay, so let's take our big brush, some extender. I start the skies out slightly thinner, so I'm going to add a little extender to this right up here. Let's start this right up here. Give a good coat of it. Now, I give a good coat because I want to work some clouds into this area. And we want that. We'll go to the light. A little bit of the light. Sometimes I just block in like that, a little darker, and it doesn't show up too much on the monitor, and then we'll go a little bit lighter. Then we got to get down to that, grayness that you see along the side here. But first I'm going to go just a touch darker up there. Just a little bit here. I'll make it a little bit touchier. Let's add a little extender to that. Thin that out, touch into this. And we'll use this right up here. I love atmosphere into the sky, which means I use a little X motion. And I had a really good question on our academies on the website group as to when I'm applying the open media, the canvas prep medium, do I go straight line linear, or do I go in a, how do I do it? Circular motion, what do I do? I use an X motion, just all the time in X motion. And sometimes, if I'm doing a painting, I will leave a little bit of the brush marks, and I do it really fine in an X motion, and I leave those brush marks so that I get some interest to the paint as it's depositing. So it's a little lighter up there. I like that. These small canvas and end of the day studies are really great things. They're really, really great things for you to practice with. Practice different things. Now, let's go down. Let's take our smaller 3/4 inch brush and let's get that gray. So a nice warm gray is a little bit of our burnt sienna right into that light blue. Let's add a bit of that extender in there. And let's take that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful color here. And we'll just model that a little bit up into the sky here as well. A little bit of extender here. And if you get it too heavy, just wipe everything with a paper towel. But I do it once. I can redraw it again. You can pull some of it off there like that. But I love that little bit of that gray right there. That's kind of nice coming through. So you get a bit of that. Now, let's thinly, very thin, take that right down, especially back here on the left side. So I start to think it's a good thing to practice. And I learned this doing this when I was actually practicing one board in the evening time. I took some of my sky right down over my mountains so that I'm painting into wet sky when I start the mountains. And it's just such a great way to start some atmosphere, the look of some atmosphere here. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now, we have our choice. It is hard to sink in some of that. Let's get my scale out of the way here. Some blue and burnt sienna into this. It's more of a violet kind of color, really light violet. So let's get some violet in here. And let's assign a value to what that mountain is going to be up there. So yeah, it's right about a 6. So as we mix up this color, we want it a 7 or a 6 because it's going to dry down, right? So that's going to be right about there, I think. Now, we could use the end of our knife, which is one way I like to do as I'm putting in mountains, but it's really small. So you have to learn how to use, and this is why this stuff is so great, guys. You learn how to use the tip of your knife. You practice using the tip of your knife here, scratching the surface here and working it, trying to get a little bit of interest into that mountain as you're putting that on there. Could go just a tiniest bit bluer, but rather than putting that in, what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of blue, put that just a little bit here in my knife and drag that down and through to create some of that look of that mountain interest here. And if I hold it flat, it really blends it. Now, so that's one way, and you can see right there you get a lot of interest. Let's take a little bit of extender and some of this model color here. And you can see with the brush, or even the combination of the two, you can get some of that interest in there. Let's go just a bit of maybe this medium beige and some blue and the white right here. And maybe a touch of the violet. I'm looking at that color. That violet's so powerful. We'll look at this color on the other side here, and we'll just come in here on this angle here. Let's look at that. It's a little warm. Boy, it's almost close. It's just that the violet over there is a little bit more violet on that other side. Let me add just a touch of white here. Gray that just a bit. Touch of white. Get that nice peak to that mountain there. And we'll add some of that light right in there. Maybe a bit of that pulling down through some of the other sides here, like that. But so you can see, you can use the small brush and get that. But the idea is that I like to practice is getting in there with my bigger brush. So let's get this just a little bit more purple here. Let's get this a little bit more purple, lighter purple here. Bluish purple, actually. And let's gray that off just a bit here. And we'll end up doing, I'm going to grab a little red violet, a little bit more powerful of a violet here. Bluish purple here. Let's see where I am on that. Boy, that's the color. But it's a little, it's about the same value, but so we're going to want it a touch lighter so it dries down. Let's try this. And again, using the tip of the knife. See, oh, that's nice. Get some differences there. And you know, when you're, that's kind of neat. That gets that mountain in there. And you know, and you can put some of the little, the interest, the vertical interest in and stuff. I love this, since I'm going to call this, you know, painting the Absaroka range. I'll get that mountain a little bit closer to what he's supposed to be here. Put another little point of him out here, out like that. Yeah, and it's kind of fun. It's just, I love to do these at the end of the day. But and the thing is, we try, or what I try to do when I'm doing these, is to, you know, paint pretty quickly here to set up. So now I can take some of this. Let's go a little burnt sienna, just a little bit of blue, a little different, model that up just a bit. And right here, so we'll have that light, but right here we'll have a whole falling range here. Scrape that off, it doesn't belong there. That's the thing about the, you know, the knife here. So we'll push this edge in, push some of that in there, and let some of this pull down to where we're going to have that other hill right there, right? And that looks pretty good. We can grab a little more dark, a little bit more interest. Try to, you know, the whole thing here is try to get it as easy as possible here. We're practicing using our knife. So I want to get some of this interest through here. Scraping. Now, see, it's a light value here. And I have this kind of thing because of the extender. So if I scrape back through like that, see, I can add a lot of light, dark interest here too. So it's a good thing to kind of practice some of this. We'll put in some heavier color, tap that through, push and pull, and get some of that interest, light interest and dark interest there in that mountain. A little more color over here. Right like that. There we go. And I'm going to go, rather than fight the tip of that knife, I'm going to go over here to the other side, right over here. Just maybe a touch of yellow. And this medium beige, and put in like the tip of this right here. I love some of the working here between the beige and the light in this range of mountains here. So we'll put some of that in. Let's go a touch more of that violet darker right in here, and add that little tip right in there. There we go. Tap that along. You know, we're gonna get some of this other interest, but we'll lighten that up a bit. Kind of, you know, when I was a palette knife painter, boy, we would just put it in there and you let what happens, you know. But it's kind of nice. And sometimes I'll come back just with like that little tip, because I do like the knife, and just push that in to break up some of that edge color that's right there. Break up, just add a little bit of light and dark. See, it adds just some really nice movements and stuff. You can use the chisel of your brush to do that, but that just adds some nice movements there. Let's just brush mark this in here. Like that is something else there. little bit more color. So just simple brush marks and stuff there. Really kind of pretty. Okay, let's keep going right on down this side here. And right back here, keep them a little bit of stuff going on. Little extender. I want this, you know, I like this thin, and this is still wet right here, so, you know, but I like the broken, the fractured edges. So this is a big old number 10, old brush. It's not a new brush, it's an older brush. And you can see it'll give some of that interest. Let's touch into some of that light color and medium beige. Tap a little bit of that into those hills back there. So, you know, one of the things I love to paint and what I've been practicing on as an artist is Impressionism. And sometimes, you know, I mean, I spent so many years doing realism that I get locked into some of this stuff, but I really love Impressionism, being able to capture an image as simplistic as possible. And that, my friends, takes a lot of practice there. So there we go. That's getting some of that in there, right? That's getting some of that. Let's go with our yellow, medium beige, some white. As I come down, right down in through here, I'm going to want some more stuff with the paint. So I'm going to try going over to some open medium here. And let this stand a little bit heavier right here in color, which will help it come forward. So we're going to have a architectural hill that's right there, right? That's coming up there. This one is going to be a little darker coming right up through here. Let me wipe back and find that one again, right? So I need to break up some of that light yellow and beige, a little more interest into it. So I'll just model up my brush a little more color here. But I want to keep that edge pretty clean so that this edge advances in front of my mountain there. Let's put a little more color here. Maybe down through here. Pull that down. Right in there. That's kind of neat. More color, more paint. And here we go. And some of that, I try to do it as big as possible. So let's just do this. Let's, again, practice, right? Let's take some of our light, some of this kind of modeled up, and let's just put this whole sloping field on. So maybe pull it across, put some color there. Hold the knife kind of flat at the angle you want to attack that, and pull that across and put that whole sloping field there. It's a little lighter at the bottom. These things also, you know, these quick ones, one of the things that I've worked on a lot, guys, is what's called observational skills. So I don't actually copy a painting, but I'm trying to look at color differences, the architecture, where you'd see textures, edges, and stuff like that. And that helps so much in your painting. Observational skills are huge as for the artist. So I'm just going to drag this for a minute, right like this. I'll come back in and put in some of that dark and stuff. But I'm looking just for some edges and stuff there. But I got to come back in with some darks, a little more dark. Some of our violets here, blue violets, and some light color. Let's thin this out. I want this a little thin, but it's dark in my brush, but I want it a little thin so I can come back and revisit some of these other edges here. Tapping through, pulling through, there's that light that's up there. We'll pull through some of this dark that's here. Some of this dark is going to just drag down, whisper down that hill there. Right, so you see them right up in there. Maybe we could do this with a knife, but maybe the brush on edge will give us see that little bit of fracturing that you get there? You can get that with the brush as well. Let's try that right up here. So we got that nice shadow. Tap and push. You know, this is how I do a lot of broken mountains with trees and stuff. So there. Try to get some of that in there. Let's push some of that right up here, a little darker. Yeah, should go darker. There we go, just like that. And some of this little dog barking in the background, if you hear that, that's my taking care. I always take care of dogs in this studio. Got my granddaughter's dogs over. They're up at dance class, and so she said, "Papa, can you watch my dog?" And I was sure. So, but let's just add a bit more of that. And I'll go back and forth with edges too. So I'll take some of this light and paint some of this in, and you know, into that edge. Let's just grab some of that right here. So going back and forth between those, you know, gives you really neat effects as well. And I'm practicing, pulling some of those edges there, just like that. So see how that light's sitting up above that. And as this starts to tack up, you come back over it again, a little more light, you know, slightly different model on the brush here, slightly different, and it'll paint a little differently, and you'll add a bit more, add a couple of little taps in there, some of that color running together there gives you a little bit more of that hill. So you're trying to emulate what you're seeing. I'm not copying it, I'm just trying to capture the image of it, where I see, like, see, I see two little tap marks there. So let's just do a couple of them right there. And I could come back in with the dark and, you know, fix that up. There's one going to be right in here. I can see I could use a little bit more of the shadow in there on some of that. But that looks pretty good. And there I could use I could come back in with a little bit of this shadow and just brush through a bit, which will add some more brush interests and stuff. Overall, that's a little darker than what I have here. I don't want to go that much because I want to keep that nice, you know, and I'll probably I'll show you, I'll take some of the sky back up over here and soften that out. We could even do some of that right now. Some of the things I do like this would be a practice, right? So can I get the sky back in there without disrupting too much of the painting? Now, I normally have showed you guys in a glaze. So, you know, if I'm looking for a different way, maybe I thin this sky color out, way out, and I just lightly paint the sky color into that, and it's going to start, and it's working, it's going to start receding that edge, see? Receding back some of those back hills. And we're putting the atmospheric back in now. Back here, it's still pretty dark, but we'll put that. So that starts to recede back. And if I want to really get that receding back a little bit more, I need to darken this front up into a few areas up here a little bit more as well. So a little bit darker, a little bit more atmospheric, if that makes sense. Let me rinse that blue out of there for a second. When I rinse, I always go back in extender, pick up a little bit of my atmosphere, thin it way out, and let's just go over this just lightly. I've showed you in lots of big paintings. One of my favorite ways to let it dry and then glaze it over, but that worked pretty good. And that hill right now is boom, popping right out, isn't it? It's coming right out right there. Let's grab some light, some little bit of medium beige, some yellow, some white. Here, let's come right down in here, push that in right in there, boom, right down in there. That's pretty good. And we have a lot of the blues, so let's just make up some more of our blues. Now we can get the blues even a little bit darker, a little gray, a little burnt sienna, but even a little darker yet right up here. I'm going to add some open medium, which will make it a little bit slippery as we're coming right up here into the fronts here. And we're going to use our knife to get some of this broken line stuff here, right up in here. There we go. And that, see how that slides really well? That's that open medium. It slides. That's why I love that open medium. It causes it to slide really easy, right? We can use it to draw in like this little valley right there. Maybe that comes into that little valley here. Some broken lines as that's pulling down there like that. We go back to our brush here and model through some of that so that I see some of that light and dark coming through there. I'm just going to leave that. Maybe a little touch of the beige or something in there. Little touches here. Right in there, little bits of it. There's the lines of it. Now, I was thinking when I was looking at this, how am I going to paint those lines? But I think now that I have this really, really wet, there's a couple ways to do it. One is, because we're here to learn and practice, right? What's one of the things that cuts the paint faster than anything else? Is water. So I know I have white underneath there. But if I start building up a lot of the yellows in there, they're just going to get lost. So what about if I take the angle of my brush and I take off those light, and so I rinse some water and I take off some of these light marks first, removing the paint. And, that gives me, and so all of a sudden this gives me an idea. What about if we pre-painted that with yellow and some of the marks, let it dry, slid the blue over it, then removed it, you would have the yellow. So that would work too. But sometimes just tapping through like this, removing some of those marks, removing some of that paint. This is a little stiff here, so let's just break up that edge a bit. Removing some of that paint there. Let's just take some of it off right there. But you take some of the blue off, then your yellows are paint easier in there, because it's hard sometimes to get blues and yellows in there, right? It's hard. Let's take some of this blue and push this up and down just a bit here. Fall some of this down. I try to read some of those things. Sometimes I'll just push back and forth so I don't get that nice straight line there, right? Yeah, that works pretty well. Let's take some of the violets, the blue, burnt sienna, model that up, little open medium here, and so that's coming there. Let's just pull across here some of this, a little more burnt sienna right in here. See, I use the knife and I use the brush on its flat like this to cause that skipping, and those colors are modeled. They're not mixed up real well. So that works really well there. Now, it has a downslope feel to it, so I'll put a little bit of this in it, and let's just pull that as a downslope a bit. Maybe a touch of our beige. Right down, let's take the light, the beige, and the yellow. That modeled up works really well. I'm just going to tap this in there so that, and that went down too far. There we go. Just get some of that interest in there, just looking at it quickly. See, then I can just come back, see, and just add right in those areas some taps of those colors. And that works pretty well. You don't have to add all of them that we see, but see, that works really well because it's not interfering too much with the blues there. So there we go. Get some of that in there. Little bits. There. That looks pretty good. I think I'm going to take a little bit of our blue and our atmosphere here, and let's darken that down but a bit more here, but with that atmosphere in there. It's not quite, I'm a little bit more green than that is, a little bit more violet, but I kind of like that. It's got a good atmospheric feel to it, and I really like that dark sitting here. I'm going to get a little bit more dark up in there, and right up in here, just coming through right in here, we'll push a bit of that right there. That gives me, and I'll thin it out now, thin out that dark I was just using, and that'll allow me to brush a little bit of it in here, just as some more differences and stuff here. There we go, just a bit more in there. It's still a little bit more violet. I could take some of my blue and my violet here and that light, a little bit more of the violet color in there. Let's just put a bit of that in. We'll see how that starts to dry down here. It might have to lighten it up just a touch. Let me just put some of that in. Oh, I like that coloring. But it's got a lot for, painting the mountain range here. It's got a lot of interest. But one of the things when I look through the range, of course, I see the light up there, but I love that area right there. So I'm going to hit that one more time with my light yellow, beige, and white kind of combination here, right in here, and put some textures into that here. And because that just really grabs a nice area there. And let's put a bit of that, and I need to get that dark up at the top up there. There, and then a little bit of dark up at the top up there. And that should be enough to let anybody see, oh yeah, I know where that range is, that's right outside of Lewiston or something, that's, I know right where that particular mountain in the range is. You can recognize it here. Okay, so let's take this, a little bit of atmosphere, some of this, and we'll work this in on this side. Right back up here, you get a lot of atmosphere back up in here. We're going to let that, because we're going to paint that big tree right in there. And so first we'll put in this soft color, as that's all going to go behind there. And then we'll work in some of our darker colors here. And a little bit of that light. Violets here. Just getting some of the idea, the impressions of the colors. This is mostly all going to cover up and stuff here. So, as a matter of fact, in the photo, it's very blurry here. So I'll just blur some of this out right over there like that. Right. As a matter of fact, I've pretty much painted out my entire drawing of the tree. So I'll just add it back in. Yeah. So we'll just thin that out and pull that out. So that works pretty well. Now I worked through that, and I wanted to show you this is dry up here now, okay? Because I didn't add that much extender to it. So let's go in and I want to show you how you can re-moisten and work some of those and good thing to practice if you've always worked into wet clouds. Now you've decided you want to add trees. So let's just come back with some extender and some of our light value that we saved And let's just, you should be able to rework this again, quite pretty. Let's take a little bit of our violet, a little bit of the blue and violet here. Right in here, thin it out. Blue and the violet, a little bit of the light. Let's just work some of this color right through here again. So once I have it all done, see, I can just come back through and model. This gives me something wet to work into here. Plus, sometimes on big paintings, I will do this 3 or 4 times just to get more atmosphere into the painting. See how I can just work this brush like this, small angles. I love the atmosphere, that little brush work like this. Don't go like this. That just makes too smooth of a situation here. So that works pretty nice. And down into that right in there. Yeah, as a matter of fact, here on the photo, you can almost, it's hard to see, but you almost pick up a little more violet there on the side. And we can do that. Once you start looking at something, sometimes you start picking up even a little bit more. Let's add a little extender. We could touch in a little more violet right up over here and really add. That's really quite pretty. Add some other color just softly in there that you pick up. And of course, what's really great about that is you got violet and then you have all of these little flowers. If you wanted to add those in there, they can go in there pretty easily here. So a little more dark down through. I love the atmosphere though in the sky. Now, okay, so for the clouds, I've showed you many times into the clouds, I like, stay a bit out of that violet. I like to go into, to take some open medium. Sometimes I like the clouds to go on a little bit thicker than what I had on the surface. So if I want this cloud right up here, I'll put some open medium. This is good practice. I hit some dark right there. And so we can whisper this cloud up like this. And see, I can slide it flat with the knife. Pull down, I could add a little more paint here. Pull down if we want to make a little bit more of a cloud. Maybe that little second one right there. And whisper this out a bit. Now I can also put them in with the brush. I can also what I call burnish it. But let me show you with the brush. So I have that nice thick. So I can just pull down through with that thickness there and just soften some of those edges of the clouds here to get that cloud that I want, to get the look to the cloud that I want. I can pick up and put more of an edge or tap along the edge or pull across to whisper it out, that cloud out. I can put this also with the brush, softer ones with the brush like this. So you don't have to always use the knife. You could use the brush to put in some soft clouds like that as well. And this is a practice piece, right? So that's what we do is we practice putting these in. And so these are a little bit, I don't like that samey same, even though it's like that over there. I don't like that same. So what I'm going to do is shove over, or soften out like this, shove this cloud over a bit. This is all really good stuff. Let's just shove that cloud, still wispy kind of cloud areas here. And tap it up here. Get a little whisper of that cloud, a little bit of more white, some open medium. That is what really gives you a cloud, because the white is thicker than the sky. And so the white sticks. See how it sticks? Consistencies and stuff are so important, guys. The white here sticks. Let's build that one up a bit here. There we go. A little bit. Kind of going through there. This one, yeah, a little bit heavier. Let's put this mountain right back behind the cloud right here. And I saw Bill Anton do that once on one of his westerns, and I absolutely loved it. And how the cloud went back behind the mountains. And I loved it. And it just added so much. Let's put a little bit heavier right out there. This is our big interest peak right here. So let's just put a little more cloud right up there. There we go. I like that. And again, you can build up big ones, but I just like that, just like that. That looks pretty nice. A little bit there, just like that. So see, it's kind of a fun little, and so you got a nice little painting started there. And that gray works out nice, you know, right in through there. Let's take just a bit of that warm color right in here. So we got a little violet there, a little gray, right along that horizon line there. That's pretty neat. Okay, so we come down now. We come down into the areas that paint a little quicker. So I'm going to, and we can use the knife, but see this lighter yellow, I'm going to just put on with the brush here, real quick, a band of lighter yellow right across like that. That's that nice. In all of the landscapes, I like to give a real horizontal, a quick horizontal that kind of grounds everything there, and that'll pull through some of that right up in there. Some of the, then we're just gonna suggest some of this other stuff here, right in there like that, okay? And then we'll put in, we're gonna do this green. Let's work from the back forward here. So we'll take some of the burnt sienna, the green, some yellow, some open medium here. Open medium is going to be very important because it's going to cause a little bit of transparency. Let's shoot in some of these colors that we're going to find on our trees here, up this tree line there, right? Let's tap in some of our pine colors in there. Model it all up. Say model it all up there, right? And you're going to find some darks. So we could add some pine and some green and some blue and some burnt sienna. And you're going to add some darks up in here. Remember, we're emulating this. We're not going to paint all darks and all that kind of stuff. We're emulating it. Now, one of the things that I practiced for a while was just to pull up with my brush lightly as I come here, because I want to give those trees the vertical look to this stuff. So I just pull up lightly with my brush here, and we can pull through and do some other things, but this makes, and you want to, and sometimes you can pull down, just stick up a little higher here, pull down, but you don't want it a straight line. You want the undulation of a tree line and stuff that you have there, right? And the feeling of the tree line, a few lighter darks, and tap some more of these darks in and through, break up some of that a bit, right in there, okay? Some of the burnt siennas, a little bit of yellows, maybe a touch of whites with that, so you can get some of those lighter colors working in there, ideas of them. And more paint, right? Lots of paint. Lots of paint going in there. And some more of that blues and darks. And so some of these areas I tend to go real quick with, so, just work some of this through various tones, right? That's what I like. The various tones of it. And sometimes when I feel that I'm like really heavy, I want to get it anchored back down, I push the brush slightly as I'm pulling through some of this, and I'll remove some of the excess paint so it's not like real heavy in there. And I like that. But sometimes I also, let me show you here, I also have found that I'll work the knife up to get some of that interest of some of those trees. And that works really, really nice as well. Let's take some yellows here. And let's get some beige and white here first. Yellow, beige, and white. Let's push in this front. Let's get to the real, we'll channel some of the real impressionist painters. I like that yellow. Let's put just a bit of that right back in there. Right back out in there. Just a touch of the color, just so the viewer can see the color a bit. Right in there. And, we can come back and still do darker trees and stuff, and you can still push around to get some of this and model some around, some of that color around and stuff like that. Because there is like darker areas in it. But it's a lot easier if you let it dry up a touch here. So let's get some beige and some yellow here. And maybe a bit of our white, beige and yellow. Oops, I touch in a little bit of blue here. We're going to need some more yellow-green too. And just put on this hill. Sometimes I leave this, where I have that opening there, I leave it because I'll take care of it later. Sometimes I'll scrape it. Now, see, sometimes if I'm putting on a lot of color, this is the one area that I practice too. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue with this too because that would look neat. And I'll use the scraper because the scraper will pull it faster and give you a really great look. And so this is the paint scraper. This is the 2-inch paint scraper. You see me use this a lot on seascapes and stuff. I love to use this on the seascapes because it gives you that broken edge here as well. Really nice here. And I like to do that. And I pulled that way too high up here, hit this, made this too flat. So I'll just take some of it out here. Just paint along the edge there. Take some of those trees out there. Just like that. So you just, a damp brush, you can just paint back, pull back through with a damp brush. Take some of that out. And works really nice. Let's just grab a couple of hits of the light and that color here. Architectural interest. This is what I call this right here, a back painting back in. A slightly different angle. Gives a little more architectural interest to it. Sometimes I'll look for that through the painting and maybe put up another little hill or a ridge line or something like that, depending upon how much time I have. You try to do landscapes. When you're practicing landscapes and stuff like this, and I try to say no more than 2 hours. Try to get it in an hour. We're not going to make that because I spent too much time on my Absaroka mountains. But I try to do it, so we're at 49 minutes, so an hour probably is not going to happen unless I paint the world's fastest tree. But, I try to do some of that stuff and practice and set little time limits and stuff. But this painting, I love how it's coming out. So I'm going to put a little bit of that warm color. This is another thing I love to do, the warm color of that ground, right into my cloud right up here. So it's one of my favorite things to do. This is actually clouds, should actually be lit a little bit more towards the front, right up here, because the light's coming this kind of front this way. So we'll light that up just a little bit different. But see, even that little bit of yellow and white is just really pretty in there. Right up in here. There we go. Right up like that. That's pretty. And maybe a few just little puffy clouds back in there. Little high clouds, smeary clouds back up in there. That's kind of neat. Okay. And you can clean up a few little edges there. There, like that. That's neat. There we go. Just Get that nice point to that mountain. Okay, so back up through here. Just model in some colors. Your burnt siennas, your yellows. Here, we're going to paint that big tree in there. Model in some of those colors. I really like the overlapping brush marks. And, you know, this is a brighter yellow here. So let's take a little of our Diarylide Yellow. Diarylide Yellow, a little bit of burnt sienna. It's really pretty. We'll just touch a little bit of that in there, like that. Let's get that yellow green in there. A little bit of the Hansa, some of that green. A little bit of white here. Maybe a little open medium. I love the open medium, how it slides over the surface and gives you some transparency at the same time. So now we're getting this hill coming forward. Isn't that kind of fun? And you could do this with the knife as well. See this nice slippery transparency kind of thing that comes from that open medium, right? That's really kind of pretty there in that. And then let's just get up here, look for an undertone, some of the beige, maybe a bit of the burnt sienna, grab some of the blues and these colors here. Just grab some colors and put them on in here. Real quick, get some of that on there. And, you know, and you could take your big brush and soften some of that movement out. I had some blue in there. That's okay. I'm going to leave it. That was a dirty... I'll just tap that through. It'll give me some soft shadows there. That looks pretty good coming forward. And we're going to be able to put in that silver sage brush and stuff like that up in the front here. But before we go in there, I mean, we should maybe paint it while it's wet, but maybe we'll model it up here first, and then we'll come in and paint the silver sage brush and stuff. So let's just take some yellows and whites and just kind of model this up. Model up the front here like this. You see me do this with prairie grass and stuff like that as well. And we'll create a little bit of movement, grass movement here, like that. Up and down. Some bright greens here, some greens, some yellows, some greens. Dirty up your colors now. Get some of this all up in here. Let some of that color get in there. And some of that movement. See that all underlying movement there? That's what I'm painting for here. And we'll just touch through little vertical strokes. Tiny vertical strokes to get some of that color right there like that. That looks pretty good. So we're looking underneath some of this stuff, right? And then we're gonna take some of the burnt sienna, some blues. We got to create a little bit of those shadow tones up in here. That's going to be between stuff, right? Some of those shadow tones. And these shadow tones is really, and there's a heavy one right up there, is really what makes it pop forward, right? So grab a little blue, some of this. Let's just push that in. A little bit there. There like that. This will be the shadow tones underneath. And we might just take our big brush here. It had a little water in it. I got to get that out of there. Otherwise I'll pull a hole. So I'll pinch wipe my brush. Really. And we'll just lightly pull through here to create some verticals in that shadow. Pull some horizontals and some verticals in there, right? And just pull that through. That looks nice and modeled up. That's what we want. all mottled up, the grasses. So you can imagine it's all of that color underneath. Then we'll put the silver sagebrush up and stuff on top of that. Maybe a bit of the brighter greens there painted into that. Some of the brighter yellow greens here. A little bit here into some of that. Little marks right there. A little bit of white. Now white will tone it down. White is a toner. Those of you studying color theory know that. So white will take away some of the yellow. It'll lighten its value, but it'll take away some of its intensity. Let's put just a bit of that right in there. Coming back. Right in there. Just kept, there's just I'm a little bigger than what it is in the photo, but I like it, so I'm going to leave it here. There we go. Like that. That's kind of neat. Some of those colors. Now we have some real fine, fine little flowers. If you want to put those in, up in there. And let's go a bit of the green back into some of this, and let's just restate a little bit of our greens further down. Some of this there for our trees. Now see, like there's edges of shadow and stuff, so you can see the light's coming from here, because look at the shadow side of those trees. So if you want to go in and, you know, specifically come in and say, boom, shadow, we can do that on a few of them. You know, just a little heavier shadow side. That got out of control there for a minute, a little too much. There we go. Love working. All that earlier movement just makes this so much easier to do. So, you know, take some time and put some of that that movement, what we first put it in, take some time, because that just makes adding these details so easy to do. If you want the details, because it looks pretty good right now, I think. So, you may not want that much more detail at all in there. So that works pretty well. I do like, and I think I'm going to do it, I do like that real light spot right there coming through, and it's not translating light enough through mine. So I'm going to take some light and some beige, and I'm going to redo this light right there. Just boom, pull that right across and reset that. Right there, I like that. And then the trees, I'll just take some of my green, some of this, and pull those trees right up there again, right up on top of that, right up through that. Add some more color. Ooh, a little dark there, Dave. There we go. I do like that idea. That's good. You can add some little bits of light. Let's add just a touch of dark in there. Just like that. That's good. So we have some little pinkish kind of flowers, lights. Let's go over here. Let's actually go right here. Some of our violets, our reds. Grab some pink here and pink it up a bit here. And we can just lightly emulate that, dragging the brush across. Adding open medium to this is a good idea too, because it'll help keep it somewhat transparent there. So we got some pretty little flowers there. Some little touches of it up in here, right? Boom. Little touches of it in a few other places here. Just little bits of it coming through, right through there like that. That's pretty. And let's go in and paint the fun part, that ponderosa pine that's up there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take some burnt sienna, some of my dirty colors. I do normally do this with a knife, but I'm going to use an old brush here first. And I'm going to I want to set it up a little higher, right up and through here. And I just want to pushing down slightly as I get closer to that ground. There, widen it out a bit. Sometimes I will add a few other little marks across for, like, you know, you see sometimes you might see a little stem line, or I mean a branch or something like that. Now, the same kind of shadow color, the deeper shadow color. Usually I start out with a medium tone. I'm going to do some darker tones drawing this, and I'm using I usually use a smaller brush. So now I'm going to use a little bigger brush. I'm going to leave some of those sky holes this time. Sky holes, openings in the paint here. Right up in here, we'll push that heavier dark. A little more blue-green. Change the tone a bit. Right out through here. I'm just glancing up at that photo. Sometimes I'll just watch the photo and just let my brush just do the dance here. And I keep looking at the photo just coming up. That's something to try if you've never tried that. It works. It'll keep it a little different. See, so each mark is a little different, right? And it's really good to step back and compare the two. So step back sometimes and compare. So we got the dark. Now let's go take some greens, some yellows, some burnt siennas, some white, some beige. Model this. I want it more on the yellow side, so more yellow. Right, more yellow. That's a nice sunlit ponderosa here. And now let's just tap through that. Less is more, okay? Do not do this heavy. Especially as you start adding whites, it's going to go opaque. Do not do this heavy. You will wipe out your whole tree. So you want less is more on this. Use the corners, drag it. Let it run out of paint as you're dragging that out there. Let the paint so you have hardly any paint, and that's fine. Right? You don't need to have tons of paint here. Let's get some more like yellow and just put in a mark right there. Leave that, and you can pull back off. This shadow is still wet, so sometimes pull back off there, right? Now my tree is weak in the branches here. I need to get a little bit heavier. Thicker, right? A little bit heavier, a little thicker through the branches here. Right in through there. And then you can come back sometimes if you get too much, just tap in some more of those shadows. So work back and forth with those lights and shadows, getting those in there. Right? Right in there. A little heavier up top. Here. Right off the side. Let's just go right off the side with some of that. There. Here. You can go small brush, but your small brush I like the big brush because I'm turning and using different edges of it and stuff like that, and that really causes a lot of interest as you turn the brush. So it is a good thing to use a slightly bigger brush like this, and see how I turn and rotate the corners and doing all of that? That's a good thing. Let's add some final little lights here. Right up into the... And sometimes I did this on the really big online classes. I'll do it a little bit different sometimes, and I like to add small touches with the knife as opposed to always the brush. So it gives a different type of texture. And so this is a good place to practice. Because what are these pieces? They're practice pieces, right? We're practicing with this. And so you can use a combination of both, the knife and the brush, to get some of those different textures using that little tip here. And just dragging that around here to... And you can scratch it around, pick up a little extra paint there, push that around here. Here, like that. A little bit. Tap it, push it. Smear it a little bit. Sometimes I really like that smeary look. I just wipe back through here. I love that kind of smeary look sometimes. Just like I like back through there. I like that. So here's a little more. There, through there. That's kind of nice. It builds up a little more yellow in the center of this other one right up in here, but I think I'm close enough. I've emulated it enough that I'm happy with it. Maybe a little more smeary shadow. There we go. Got a nice thick tree, few little sky holes showing through. And yeah, overall that works pretty nice. There we go. And a little more dark and some burnt sienna. Just kind of touched in there on the sides. A little bit every once in a while through the tree. Yeah, we'll just call that one. That worked out pretty nice. Let's just work in a few more lights. You get too much pink, let it dry like I just did, and then take it back out. We could use some lighter. I see some, like these are almost like vertical grasses here, so I'll put some color along there, wipe my brush, and then just push up and down a bit. Quick emulation. We're quick here. Quick emulation of these things, right? Yeah, that's what we're going for, the quick emulation of it. Quick ideas of it. Okay. So now we have the silver sagebrush here, and a lot of I've painted a lot of silver sagebrush, a lot of the sagebrush, and using a small, like a bristle round and stuff to put some of that stuff in. I wanted to try. Now the silver color is really a light blue-green, and so we'll take some green and some blue. And then it goes very light, very, very light. It's a light blue-green. So we could have a little bit more yellow into that here. But I'm going to model it up as well. But it's really light in color. It's almost like a gray. So let's just grab this, lighten this up. You're dirtying up some of these colors are going to be kind of pretty. A little bit still green. Let's even grab some of the beige in there. But it's a blue-green, basically. So a little more blue and some yellows here. And I'm just going to model this up. Let's see what that will... And see, it's going to change here too. So the other way to do it is with your knife. And I've always wanted to try these with the knife. Scratching the surface like that, because see, that does a beautiful job as well. So you load the knife up. Let's just do some of this. You load the knife up and you scratch the surface here. Now if you get too much, you do like I do with the sagebrush, with the prairie, and I pull through like this, which takes some of that off. You can also when our job is to emulate it pretty quick, right? You could also use your brush here to take some of it back down that way. The thing is, you're trying to emulate it real quick, and what I try to do is stay away from a liner brush, right? Don't want to use a liner brush to go in there, because that's the normal way we would do that, see? And so here I'm going to try doing this with the knife, because this is practice. And we'll try to put some of this beautiful silver sagebrush in here with some of this knife. And you can scrape back through some of this here. And let's pull through some of that. That blurs it out, takes some of it out. So you can put some in soft and then put some in a little bit more distinct with the edge of the knife. So that would be like a little more structured one, distinct, or a little more detail to it here. And on the bigger stuff that's down here, we could use our brush kind of lifting up. That work, boy, this old brush is old fusion brush. It works really, really nice. I tell you, when they get old, don't ever get rid of your brushes. You know, I used to throw away brushes. No. There is always a technique that they are good for, right? We could take a little light pink in there too. Just let that come in there. That's pretty. I like that. So maybe I'll start out softer with this brush. And this is how a lot of the Western and the landscape painters will do the sagebrush. Is a lot of vertical strokes with their, especially the bristle brush. But this fusion works really nice. It's setting down some real soft stuff here. And then I'm going to try something here, I think. So I'm setting down some soft here. And we'll take some greens, a little bit of our greens, burnt sienna, these colors. We'll shadow back to divide some of it up. Here, like I see up there. Shadow back some of it. Creating the depth, right? Yeah, creating the depth. Shadow some of this back. Some of that shadow, original shadow we put on is still showing through. And then I'll take some more light, work it right in here, maybe a touch of more yellow here. We'll take some of this and add some of the real light front. Maybe a bit more white here. Oh, might have to grab some more white, but I think, oops, squeaky chair. I think I am getting close to it here. Close to the value. Ooh, that was a little too thick. So we'll just blur it out there a bit. But put in some different values here, see? And, yeah. I'm going to have to touch the other way because my palette is in the, my painting is, the easel is in the way. Either have to raise up my stuff. I do like this, and so this is probably what I'm going to do. I'll have to raise it up and get some more details and stuff in there, but that's working really nice to emulate some of that. A little bit back up in here. A little bit back up in here. I love to blur it out, like when you make smaller little touches of it out there, because we have that all out there. and a little other color in there. So shoot in some of these other, and that's what, you know, a lot of the impressionistic painters will come in here. So you'll see some yellows and some greens, burnt siennas, yellows, and some greens, you know, pushed all the way like right in here. So you'll come back and tap some of those on, then bring back, tap in some more green here, Dave. Let's get some greens here. Work it back and forth like this. And open medium, add some open medium to keep that transparency and translucency going in there, right? We'll add some here. Right up like that, back and forth. Here you could use different brushes and stuff as well. But this knife works pretty well. It's a little bit of a hassle in that it takes a long time. You could also go grab this brush that I've used before for the prairie, and that works pretty nice. Keep your strokes a little longer so it looks like the sagebrush here. That works pretty nice in there as well. Lots of different ways here. There we go. And push in some shadows, take some back out. Right, touch through. This one's a little long, but there's long ones in there, so yeah. But I think that's got a good little look to it. You might want to just intensify some of this up here, though, too. That would, and in other words, not quite go solid, but pull in quite a bit more just to keep the softness to your painting so it doesn't get too edgy. You know what I mean? Too much edges. Get some of that softness in there. Tap in some of those other colors here. Work them. But it's practice to see if you like the look. That's the whole thing. And this is just a quick little painting. We didn't use very much paint at all. You know, and we could take a little pink and some white here. Touch in a few more little forward flowers here. Just dirty brush, modeled on the dirty brush. So you see that. Little touches of our blue, green, burnt sienna. Some darker touches right up in here. Just like that. That all works. So there, like that. Yeah. Now we can put some more. I'll probably put just a little bit more maybe up in there. That'll be up to you. Maybe a few more little lights and stuff right up there. A few more. And I think I'm going to try, because we're here. Oh, I have my wonderful grass brush that I use out here. This is how I discovered using a grass brush. I made this from taking a big old bristle round and basically pounding it flat, and then taking a pair of clippers and cutting out almost every other hair. So, yeah. And that works pretty well too. Just using it on the chisel here to draw in a few gives you some of that. That's kind of nice there. I'm going to turn this right into this little clump, so I'll push. Now that I have some of that movement, I'll turn some of it right into the little bush here, right like that. Just, you know, turning some. and some this way. Some this way. A little bit out through here, just little touches of it just fading away. And there you go. You can see how much darker that dried down. The Absaroka did back there into the back. And let me just show you here. And so what? Well, an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, that's not too bad. We're going to try to keep it under 2 hours, but let's just take some, and I'm just about out of that light, but just a real light blue, just with a little water or extender, and over that edge, right back there, see how that pushes that mountain way into the back there, see? And it's a little bit lighter than what it is up over there, but it's got more atmosphere to it here. Definitely has more atmosphere to it. There we go, a little bit of that. Just like that. So you can see that. So overall, that's kind of a fun little painting. Might put a few more lights into those light greens that are right up there, but definitely maybe a little more brown and burnt sienna, some green, some dirty stuff right in here. A little bit more ground movement right up in here. Maybe a bit of our lighter yellows. Some of that. There we go. Around there, just, you know, you're just the movement. You're just emulating the movements here. Sometimes I like that little brighter edge. Right like that. But I love that back through there now. So now you got the trees and all of that stuff. You can, right in here, you can take some of those greens and stuff that we have, emulate maybe a little more trees back there. That's kind of cool. You can turn some of this, just put in just little touches, tiny little touches of some of those greens and other colors. And the viewer will start to pick those up as little trees going up the side of the mountains there before they turn into the bluish color because of the atmosphere. So little marks, but that all works. I think that all works pretty well. So there you got it. I like that with that mountain back there and that little sitting there, that all fading away and all of the modeling of the color. That's what I really wanted to paint in there. I might put up a few more little lights right in here once that's really dry with the knife. I'll just take some super light colors here and just add a few more little sparks of light color right up in the very front here. Kind of finish it off here. But I got to let it dry a bit because I'll just keep scraping it up here. So a little bit more. But that's what gives you. So silver sagebrush, some of your ponderosa pines, and back through the Absaroka. Okay? Hope you enjoyed it. That's kind of fun. That's a really nice painting to kind of finish off this day with. I've had a really great creative day, and this is one to kind of finish it off. That could be a little whiter. Don't do it. This is practice, right? This is good practice. You're trying some different things. Step out of your comfort zone. Try some different things. It's a practice board. And it turns out to be a pretty nice board, but it's a practice board. And have some fun with it, okay? I'm going to be doing some more practice boards. I also, those of you over in the academies, this morning I posted a bunch of really big ones. And I got a big one right here. Big landscape. Those of you landscape painters, we're going to do a big landscape. This is 3 feet high this time and 2 feet wide. I call it Through the Wind River. It's up in the Wind River range of Wyoming on a beautiful river coming right down. It's going to be a big one. And so I'll paint that one. I have Packing Out, which is going to have mountains and trees and a little western theme to it. I have the White Wolf, which we're going to do. And I also have a commission that I have to do of a dog that, kind of a special one. So I'll be sharing that with you, of a husky. And so we decided we're going to go ahead and film that one as well. So besides that and the florals and everything else, a lot of stuff coming, okay? So make sure you click that subscribe button, click that little bell if you want to get notified when we do release those videos, and please click like on it. That, just takes 2 seconds, and click like, and because that helps our videos. If you like our channel, please help our videos. Click like and leave a comment. That helps a lot, okay? Thanks very much, guys. I'll see you in another couple days, and we'll probably paint maybe the white wolf yet. It's a nice little quick study of the white wolf, and then we'll go into the others, okay? All right, see you then.